Good morning. So today we're going to be testing out Fenty Beauty's new Eaze Blur Skin Tint Drops. It is a light coverage, natural finish. It's free of parabens, gluten-free, and cruelty-free. It quickly and evenly evens out your complexion with blur effect. It has a hydro blend complex and humidity. I don't know what that means. So sweat and transfer resistant formula. So it's a sweat and transfer resistant formula as well. It says to shake well before use. This is what the bottle looks like. It's very tiny and it's a plastic bottle this time, as opposed to the last one that they came out with, which is the very first one they came out with, which was a glass bottle, which this one actually has the same amount of product as the very first one does. It says to apply full drops with fingers or full body foundation brush. The brush is sold separately. I do have a foundation brush, so I don't think I need to get a separate one. And then it says may layer with skin products, which is nice because a lot of foundations will blend weirdly with skin products, and then by the end of the day you've got a oily, blurry mess on your face, if you know what I'm talking about. So I went ahead and shaked it up. I got color number 9, and this was $29.50 if I haven't told you. This is not supposed to be like a full coverage. It's supposed to be just like a I don't know, semi coverage, I guess. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna go ahead and just put a drop here on my finger and just kind of spread it out. Maybe I'll do 2 drops. And the drop just looks like that. It's not that thick. So it's a little runny, but not as runny as you would think it would be being in a drop form. So we'll see how this works out. And I'll go ahead and just take my blending brush here. And this is just a Luxie brush. It's brush number 732. So it's a foundation blending brush. So I'll just go ahead and start blending this in here. And I did do like a shade match on the Sephora website for this. So I just matched it to my Fenty foundation that I have now, that I know matches my skin color. So this is number 9 is what I got. And then my other Fenty foundation color that I use is 260. See, that way if you needed a kind of a guide as to what I was doing here. Okay, it looks like it's okay. It blended okay. It's a very light coverage, as you can see here. You can see it did take away the redness on my face, which is what I normally go for. But it's definitely a light coverage, and it's not really covering much of anything, which is okay for most people, and I don't mind that coverage. It's just a light coverage, but if you want more of a full coverage, you're gonna have to go in with more. So let's go in with another dollop here, and let's just see what happens when we try to build it up here. All right, and so that's the side with the brush there. It actually, I think it blends okay. It doesn't really blur like it says it's gonna blur. I have kind of bigger pores, so some of my pores here in this section is not really blurring like I would like it to. It's not going into my skin like some other foundations would, but it's definitely covering enough with the 2 drops so that I would be okay with that. I'm gonna go ahead and, you know what, I think I'm just gonna do the brush on both sides and let's see how that works. I think that if we used a damp beauty blender, then it's just gonna take it away completely. I don't think that this foundation has enough coverage to actually work with the damp beauty blender. It's just, I think that it will just take it away. Now this one is not like the original Fenty where you didn't have to use a lot of foundation. This one you do have to use a little bit more to get a little bit more coverage. So be aware of that. It's not gonna be that 1 drop and done type thing. You may need to use maybe 1 or 2 drops, maybe even 3 depending on the coverage that you're looking for. This is what it looks like with the full face of foundation. I think it does okay. On the forehead, it's kind of just sitting on top of my skin. Same thing is going on here in the skin on my cheeks. I hope that the camera's picking that up. And then definitely on my nose, it's just sitting on top of my nose as well. I feel like for some reason, this foundation so far, when I put it on in the morning, it doesn't really sink into my skin the way I would like it to. And right now this really isn't doing that. But as it melts throughout the day, we'll see what happens on my skin. I'm gonna go ahead and put the rest of my makeup on, and then I'll come back and show you what other makeups look like on top of it if it moves around or anything like that. So it is kind of tacky, so you may want to set it if you have oily skin. That's something that I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go ahead and set it with the a coat of airspan. We'll just set a little bit. That way when I'm working with other things on my face, it won't really move around very much. But yeah, it's definitely still kind of tacky, even with the setting powder on it, the little amount of setting powder that I put on there. So I'll be right back to show you what it looks like with everything on. It is 11:17 in the morning right now. All right, so I'm back. This is what the finished look looks like. It is now 11:31 in the afternoon. So everything went on really, really nicely with this foundation. If you don't set it, you may have some moving around of the foundation. It doesn't really fully dry down on your face if you don't put something on top of it. So that's something to be aware of before you go in with like your blushes and your contours and all that stuff. Other than that, I think it does really, really well. It didn't move around. It's still definitely sitting on top of my skin rather than in my skin. So that's something to be aware of. But as the day goes on, we'll see if it kind of melts a little bit more into my skin as, you know, you sweat and your skin oils come out and all that stuff. But other than that, it looks okay. I think it does a really good job of covering up the stuff that I want to cover with 2 applications. So I did one and then I did another. So it's going to be a lighter coverage foundation for those of you that want to purchase this at the $29.50 or $28.50. It's a lighter coverage. It's not going to be something that's going to be completely full coverage like the original Fenty is. But this would be something that you might want to wear on lighter days. Of course, you can build it up, which I did. I did build it up, and I'm sure if I put a 3rd layer of it on there, it would be very full coverage. But at this point, this is about what I would go as far as foundation goes. I'm not going to go any further than that. But so far, it looks great with other makeups on top of it. It does not move around if you set it. So I'll come back in a couple of hours and show you what it looks like at about 4 hours, and then again at 8 hours, show you what it looks like at a full like work day, and see if this is going to be something that you decide to pick up if you have oily skin like I do. It is now 3:33. The foundation is definitely starting to get dewy on my face. I'm gonna go ahead and just take a clean tissue paper so I can show you that it does come off on the tissue paper a little bit, not too much, but just a little bit. So I hope you can see there's just a little bit of come off there. I believe it does claim to be transfer proof, so there's just a little bit that's coming off there. Not a lot and not over obsessive or anything like that. Kind of separating in the cheek area here. It's, I don't know if you can see that here. Let's see if I can get closer. There you go. See how it's kind of separating here in this cheek area? It's not really doing it on this side, but it is doing it on this side. And in the forehead, it's just, it's not really bad in the forehead. It's not really creasing in my wrinkles there, but I mean, a little bit it's creasing. On the nose area, it's definitely gathering there. And then on the sides of my nose, it has been gathering in the creases of my nose. And then right here, this is just at 4 hours. It does look a little bit nicer on my skin because it's starting to melt into my skin a little bit more because of the oils that I'm producing. So it doesn't look bad. This is one that you're definitely gonna wanna have a blotting sheet with you to blot if you have oily skin like I do. It does come off on the glasses area. I do see like that little pads right here on my nose throughout the day. So that's something to be aware of as well. But it doesn't look bad at this point. It just looks a little greasy. So something, you know, like a little pad, if you have one of those little beauty blender ones that you keep in your purse that will take away the oils, that might be something that you want to bring along with you throughout the day with this foundation. But this has just been 4 hours. So I'm going to come back in another 4 hours and show you what it looks like at 8 hours throughout the whole day and see if it actually just stayed on my face throughout the day or if it faded away within the next couple of hours. So I'll be back in a few hours to show you what it looks like then. All right, it's been 8 hours now. It is now 7:45 in the evening. I've had this on for 8 hours and I haven't even looked at it, to be quite honest. I've been just lazing around the house. I'm definitely oily. I expected to be this oily because I've worn it before in the past, and so I knew it was going to be this oily. At this point, the makeup does not look bad, but again, it is definitely oily, and you can see that within the camera there. I'll go ahead and just take a clean tissue here and just blot everywhere so we can see how much oils are actually coming off here with foundation. And it is a lot. It's a lot more than it was earlier today when I did this the first time at 4 o'clock. I have had glasses on, and so let me get closer so you can see. You can see that I've had glasses on. You can see where the glasses pads were on both sides, and it has definitely rubbed off there. My nose is super oily, like so oily. I just did that and it just basically took off the foundation. My forehead doesn't look bad, and this area doesn't look so bad. It's just, you can see where it's kind of starting to fade here in this area and got kind of patchy, but that happened within 4 hours of being on my skin. So I don't know what happened here. There was like a weird reaction there with that side. This side was perfectly fine, so I don't know what happened on this side. And then the rest of my face looks okay. I'm not saying it's a bad foundation, and I think that it would be a good foundation for somebody that just wants some kind of light coverage. I think light coverage would be the most that I put on. I think the more that I put on my face, it becomes a little bit more cakey, and then it becomes way oily at the end of the day, which is not something that I'm looking at anymore when it comes to foundation. I prefer, you know, something that looks more natural. And this does look natural, but for me, the first Fenty that came out is still my favorite as opposed to the new Fenty that come out. I don't think this is a bad foundation. I think a lot of people will get a lot of nice use out of this one and would enjoy it if you have like normal skin or maybe even dry skin. But for me, because I do have the oily skin, it doesn't protect oily skin at all. And I have used it with primers before. Today I didn't use it with a primer, but I have used it with the Milk Primer, this Hydro Grip Primer, and it does the same thing. So it's not like it's because I'm not using a primer. I've used it with that primer. I've used it with the Urban Decay primer. And I've also used it with this No More Pores from Touch of Soul. So I've used it with different primers to see if it would stay on longer, and this is basically the effect. Now it does stay on, don't get me wrong, it's still on my face. My face still looks well covered for the most part. It's not that this foundation doesn't stay on my face, it just doesn't suppress the oils, and that's something that with oily skin that I'm always looking for, is for something that's going to suppress the oils a little bit more. That way I'm not having to do a lot of maintenance throughout the day. So that was my review on this foundation. Let me know if you guys have tried this foundation, what you guys think about it, if you like it better than the old Fenty, or if this one's a better preference for you. I don't dislike it, I just don't love it as much as I was hoping I was going to. Alright guys, I hope you guys have a good afternoon, and we'll talk to you later.